On the 27th of June 1997, we were given Batman and Robin, the much maligned, much hated, much derived fourth film in the original Batman anthology series. This film was again directed by Joel Schumacher, who had previously directed Batman Forever. And starring in the role of Batman this time around was George Clooney. Val Kilmer jettisoned the Batsuit and wanted nothing to do with this film. He wanted to go on to pastures anew for reasons that we will come into later. Chris O'Donnell returned in the role of Robin, Dick Grayson, and this time they were joined by Alicia Silverstone, fresh off of Clueless, and she was in the role of Batgirl, and they were propped up by villains such as Mr. Freeze, portrayed by the fantastic Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, you know, Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, was played by Uma Thurman. Yeah, so, you know, a very strong cast of wonderful actors in there, in their own right, to a degree. Some of them not. Now, in this film, we saw this story where Mr. Freeze was a sort of, he was a new villain in town, but you didn't see his origin story except for in flashbacks. So you didn't have to live through that. Pamela Isley, her origin story is shown through the course of the film, and you have Mr. Freeze, who's out to freeze the city, steal diamonds and freeze everyone in the city and this sort of stuff. Poison Ivy, Pamela Isley, she wants to have the world overgrown by flora, you know, a world of green. So the two of them combine forces, even though their objectives don't align whatsoever, to enact their dastardly plans. Along for the ride, obviously, Batman. He's there in Gotham City doing what Batman does, along with Robin and along with Batgirl, who comes along in the film. Yeah, so it's a villain-centric movie with Batman just inhabiting the city and doing what Batman does. There is a small storyline involving Alfred, the great Michael Gough, in which he's dying, and he's got this illness that just happens to be the illness that Mr. Freeze's wife has succumbed to, and why she's on ice. Yeah, so that's the story. Pretty simplistic again, very much like the others, quite weak on story, to be honest. But, you know, is the film truly deserving of its hatred? Let's get into that. Now, I've got to take my mind back now to 1997 and where I was when I saw this film. I recall going to see it. I saw it in Peckham Rye Cinema, actually, with a friend of mine. Now, Peckham Rye Cinema, I wouldn't venture down there now, not if I wanted to live another day. Yeah, I'd probably not get out alive. It's such a horrible area. But anyway, so I ventured down there. We saw it. I came away, and I was like, okay. Now, I wasn't as upset by this film as a lot of other people were. It's not my least favourite in the Batman franchise. That goes to the film that came before. If you watch my other review, you'll see why. So I was quite happy that Val Kilmer wasn't returning in the role of Batman. Now, the reason for his departure has been put down to several different things. Number one, they've said that he wanted to go and do the Island of Dr. Moreau. And also, the other reasoning is that he met someone's children who was more interested in the world of Batman than him actually being Batman, and he came to realise that actually anyone can play Batman. So he didn't return. That was his words for that latter part there. That's what he said more recently. I don't know what's true, what's not, but there are the general rumours that go around. So anyway, so like I said, it was up to George Clooney. Now, George Clooney, he played this role as himself. He's George Clooney. Yeah, there's no division between Batman and Bruce Wayne in this film. There's no overarching story of you know, two different sort of personality types or anything like this. When he's Batman, he is Bruce Wayne. You know, and that doesn't work for some people. Now, in my mind, if you were to have swapped these two films around, as in the latter two with the first two Tim Burton ones, it wouldn't have been as badly received, because you would have been on the back of the 1966 Campness TV series that this film tries to convey itself. Yes, so had that all people had known at the time, back then in the late 80s, they'd have probably accepted these Batman films a lot more than what they would have done with the darkness and the grittiness and the realness that, well, not realness, but you know what I'm saying, the darkness and the grittiness of the Dark Knight that Frank Miller brought to the table with his stories in the Batman comics. And thusly, people didn't want to take this step back into camp territory. Now, I've got an interesting history with this film, and it sort of stems out of Batman Begins, which we'll come into, obviously, in future episode. But Batman Begins I'd seen, and I came home and I put on Batman 1989. Now if you watch my Batman 89 video, I do explain this in that as well. I'd put on Batman 1989 after, literally the day after watching Batman Begins, and I didn't like it. I had to switch it off about 15 minutes in. It was with that fresh in my mind, and then going to that, I couldn't watch it and I had to switch it off. But yet I could watch this film. So that begs the question, why? When this film is full of problems, much maligned, not what people wanted. The reason why I could watch it is because it is so far removed from anything else Batman that I can watch it as its own entity, as its own little film that just takes me to another sort of Batman world of campness, and that I really don't mind. Don't get me wrong, I know it's a bad Batman film. It's low on my list of favourite Batman films, very low indeed, but not the lowest. But that being said, I can sit and I can enjoy it just because it's completely different than anything else, apart from the 1966 TV series and film. So thusly, I could watch it. Now, as I've said, the role of Batman, George Clooney, he plays it much like Adam West. You can tell he's Batman. You can tell Batman is Bruce Wayne, essentially. Do you know what I mean? There's no dividing character or anything like that between the two. Okay, fair enough. Chris O'Donnell, I didn't really like him in Forever, but in this, he's more of a Nightwing than a Robin. And I had issues with him being Robin. So again, as a more mature character, I could handle him. Now, Alicia Silverstone was fresh off of Clueless. Now, Alicia Silverstone, I can take or leave. I've recently seen her in a film. She was fantastic in it. She really was. You know, a brand new film. But yet, a week before that, I watched her in another film, and she was crap in it. Yeah, so she's like a bus. I haven't seen her for about 20 years in anything, and then 2 films come along within a week. One I love, one I hate. Go figure. Anyway, moving on. Uma Thurman. I think she's the only actor in this film that came away with any dignity, to be honest. She was wonderful as Poison Ivy. She oozed the sex appeal of the character and all this sort of stuff, and that, you know, and the way she leads men on and all this. Fantastic. She was very, very good. Her outfit, as corny as it looked, was pretty fantastic, even though it's just sort of a rubber type of a you know, garden glove rubber type of outfit, shall we say, which was quite apt. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? As much as you say, I know he's got all these stupid one-liners throughout the film, but he delivers them with ease. Do you know what I mean? I know they're just like eye-rollingly corny and all this sort of thing. But the good thing about Arnie in this film, even though he headlines the film, he hasn't come in with this massive ego to turn around and say, this is my movie. You know, I'm in charge here, this is my film. No, Arnold Schwarzenegger portrays Mr. Freeze like he's just passing through. Arnold Schwarzenegger knows he's there just to have a bit of fun, and he's off onto his next project, yeah. And in that sense, he's a joy to watch within the film. The costume design for Mr. Freeze, you know, this big sort of silver suit with these neon blue lights inside. I really liked it. I thought it was really good. It's not what you expect from what you see from the comics and that sort of thing, and the cartoon series, but nevertheless, I enjoyed that design. Now, the one character in this film that was truly given a bad rap was that of Bane. Yes, we had Bane. Now, the character of Bane had recently been introduced in the comic books, not too long before this, in a storyline called Nightfall. Yes, in the early 90s, we got Death of Superman with Doomsday. And after the hit that was that, DC tried to emulate the story again with a storyline called Nightfall, which saw the introduction of a character called Bane, who broke Batman's back. Now, this may seem familiar to you because this is what happened in The Dark Knight Rises. But in the comic books, this was a big deal because Batman was paralysed. He had his back broke, and we were introduced to a new Batman played by a character called Azrael, who was in the comics as well, or Azbat as he came to be known. So when Bane was announced in this film, people were somewhat excited. But in the end, we got this dumb, hulking wrestler type of a character. Now, the one thing about this film is that Bane does look very much like Bane, although not really as big, as opposed to Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, who character-wise is a better character, but he doesn't look as much like Bane as in the comic book as what Bane in this film does. But nevertheless, the character was wasted, he was underutilised, and just turned into more of a joke, which was very unfortunate. In an otherwise crowded film of character. Now, this film, as we know, is one big toy advert. That was Warner Brothers' idea going into this film. That was their mandate to sell toys. And I'll tell you what, I would have bought that Batmobile. I love the Batmobile in this film. It's not the 1989 Tim Burton Batmobile. It's nowhere near as good as that. There are better Batmobiles, but it's far superior to the Batmobile that we were given in Forever. Yeah, with the wobbly blimmin' fins and all that sort of thing. I like this Batmobile. It was more akin to the 89 Batmobile in its length and that sort of a thing. One person seated, no roof cover. The 66 TV series had no roof cover. Do you know what I mean? This sort of thing. It was designed to sell toys, as were the bat suits that Batman wore throughout the film. You know, he had his like snowsuit at the end and this sort of a thing. The film is ridiculous. You have to embrace that ludicrousness of this movie and the world that it's set in. It's aesthetically speaking, it takes another step further from Batman Forever. It was a world of neon colour and brightness and yeah, and when you watch it in 4K, those colours just pop off of the screen. This film is so colourful. There's a ridiculousness to the sets. It's all set bound, obviously. The ice piles when people are frozen, the wobbling ice on the side of the car door when the police officer opens a car door. It all adds to the campness of this. Continuing with that look of Gotham City in this film, there was a lot of fantastic model work that I really enjoyed for the look of the city. You've got these towering statues and these car lanes high up. You know the bit where Batman drives off chasing Mr. Freeze and they're going over the arm of the statue. Again, silliness, totally silliness, but the look of it, the look of this world, is otherworldly in a sense, as you wouldn't get architecture like that, but it just looks fabulous, and I enjoy that side of it, that they've constructed these fantastic models, this fantastic looking model city. Yeah, it's not the gothic world of Tim Burton's two films, but there's a lot to enjoy in the look of that side of it. Now, like I said, the film is flawed. It's a weak story. It's got some lines that make your eyes roll. You got scenes where Batman pulls out his back credit card, and it's always, you got to take it for what it is. You got to take it for that campness and that stupidity of this world, and that's what this film does in droves. It's just ridiculousness. That being said, I have a lot of fun with the film. Yes, like I said, I've said previously in this, it's a film that's so far removed from anything else that I can watch it and I can enjoy it in that sense. There are editing editing errors within the film. There are bits where continuity doesn't match up with suits and things on their suits and this sort of a thing, but just roll with it. Do you know what I mean? It's not a great film, but for me it's a fun film. You know, I see why people hate it. I accept why people hate it, but it's a film that I can actually defend. to a degree, and I would fail in my defence, obviously, compared to other people, and I wouldn't win anyone round. But for me, it's an enjoyable 2 hours and 5 minutes of Batman ludicrousness. The musical score for the film, I had no issue with whatsoever. I thought it was better than what was done in Batman Forever. Not that it's a soundtrack that I'd ever consider listening to or anything for this, but I feel for the film it was fine and it works when you're watching it. So that's another bonus in a sense. But the biggest bit of praise I have to give to this film is Batman Begins. Yes. This film's failure and the fact that Warner Brothers didn't press ahead with a 5th Batman film, which was going to be Batman Triumphant, I believe, led the way to Batman Begins, the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman films that are much loved. Yes, so, you've got to be thankful where you need to be. And this film, you can be thankful for that very reason. So, yeah, for me, it's an enjoyable Batman film. Not a great Batman film, don't get me wrong, but I can sit and I can watch it. More so than the 3rd one, which I struggle to get through and I have to switch off. But anyway, so that's it. That's me done for this episode. Now, next episode, I'm going to take a look at a bit of some making of material that I have. Just to sort of take a break from the film reviews or my thoughts on the films, and then I'll come back into the Nolan trilogy of film and we'll talk about that. So anyway, this is AJ. Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button. Maybe leave me a comment down below. I know this is a very, very divisive opinion that I've said here that's going to probably shock a lot of people. But there you go. It's my opinion. And that's it. I'm not going to beat anyone up or want to fight anyone for having a different opinion than me that some people seem to want to do for some odd reason. Yes, but that's the beauty of film, isn't it? That we all have different opinions. And there you go. So anyway, here's AJ. Thanks for watching. See you on the next episode of Batman Before.